Welcome to Pensar Basketball Live. My name is Robert. Definitely hit like, subscribe, and all that good stuff on your way in. Today we're talking about two quick things, and we have only an hour to do it. And it's going to be quick and hopefully rapid and informative. The Raptors get the bad news, I guess, that Jontay Porter has been banned for life. And if you follow the channel, you know that I really, really like Jontay Porter. So this is a bummer for me. Um, the allegations and of course what the evidence is showing is damning. It is far, 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 far more serious than I could have ever imagined it being, how embroiled he was in this. However, I guess if there was anyone who was capable of doing this, it would be this guy. And it's disappointing. It's disappointing because the Raptors did not have a lot of young players that worked out this year for them. If you exclude the main young players, which is RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, and Grady Dick, there really wasn't a lot. You can say there were flashes in the pan of Javon Freeman Liberty, maybe a promising game here or there from Jamias Ramsey or Kobe Simmons. But really, I mean, Jontay was it, right? He was a positive contributor on a team that didn't have a lot of positive contributors in terms of the analytics. Defensively, he was very, very impressive. Offensively, he really figured it out. And he was only 24 years old. So I'm not talking about the guy like he died. He chose to do this. And I understand that a lot of people are going to use this opportunity to call him stupid. Mistakes do happen. I hope he learns from this and I hope he moves on. He did throw away his career in the NBA. Chances are, of course, he took the odds and said, hey, my career in the NBA is not for granted. My career in the NBA may not be very long. And, you know, for a guy who openly has talked about entertaining the possibility of life after basketball, I wonder if now he will, in fact, think about life after basketball. The allegations here are so severe, and we'll take a look at a few of them just momentarily. um, this is not something you just get to walk away from. First of all, there's legal implications, of course, to what he's done. This is not just an NBA thing. This will be an FBI thing. This is a crime. This is a crime of severe magnitude. So I wonder if this not only impacts him, but also impacts the Porter family and also impacts perhaps Michael Porter, his brother, who clearly loves him dearly. And Michael, of course, is heading into the playoffs. They need his head to be clear. And, now he knows that his younger brother is, potentially going to be facing an FBI probe. So this sucks. Let's just read this out from cbc.ca. The investigation started once the league learned from, quote, licensed sports betting operators in an organization that monitors legal betting markets about unusual gambling patterns surrounding Porter's performance in a game on March 20th against Sacramento. The league determined that Porter gave a bettor information about his own health status prior to the game and said that another individual known to be an NBA bettor placed an $80,000 US bet that Porter would not hit the numbers set for him in parlays through an online sportsbook. That bet would have won $1.1 million. Porter took himself out of the game after less than 3 minutes, claiming illness. None of his stats meeting the total set in the parlay. The $80,000 bet was frozen and not paid out, the league said, and the NBA started an investigation not long after. Wow. Okay, so didn't even make the money. Bet was frozen. So, I mean, people saying, I'm just waiting for the Netflix special. Actually, this probably will become the subject of a documentary. It's a really big deal. Porter took himself out of the game in less than 3 minutes. Okay, you don't want this for this kid. You don't want this for our team, and we don't want this for our league. That's for sure. Masai Ujiri said Wednesday in Toronto, speaking shortly before the NBA announced Porter's ban. My first reaction is obviously surprise because none of us, I don't think anyone saw this coming. Yeah, I mean, sure. The league has partnerships and even relationships with more than 24 gaming companies, none of whom advertise during NBA games. Many of whom advertise during NBA games in a variety of ways. Silver himself has been a longtime proponent of legal sports wagering, but the league has very strict rules for players and employees regarding betting. And what Porter has found to have done was in violation of a collective bargaining agreement, which states, quote, any player who directly or indirectly wagers money or anything of value on any game or event in association in the NBA G League shall, in the NBA or G League, shall on being charged with such wagering be given an opportunity to answer such charges after due notice, and the decision of the commissioner shall be final, binding, and conclusive on unappealable. Cardinal sin. I mean, look, there's a lot here, right? The league also determined that Porter, the brother of Denver Nuggets forward Michael Porter, placed the last 13 bets on NBA games using someone else's betting account. The bets ranged from $15 to $22,000. Total wagered was $54,000, generated a payout of $76,000 on net winnings of $21,000. There were allegations, of course, that he bet on the Raptors to lose. He bet on his unders, etc. Okay. Hold on. In both those games, okay. Anyways, long story short, Jontay Porter is not coming back to the NBA. I think, to those of you saying he might go to Europe, I don't think you understand how, or maybe you do understand, maybe I didn't understand, but we need to acknowledge how other players see this, right? Especially if it can be determined or proven that he bet on the Raptors to lose. A lot of people that I spoke to said the egregious part of this was not that he bet on his numbers, but rather that he bet on his unders. Yeah. So that's not just a matter of illegality within the league or CBA. That's actually goes beyond that, and that might infringe on the Band of Brothers code of conduct, ethics of basketball, love of the game clauses that people have. And I don't think that he's necessarily going to be welcome in a locker room ever after this. I don't think that, I mean, it's just too much to touch, if you know what I mean. So I think, and it's sad to say, because performance wise and analytically, he's one of the 150 best basketball players in the world this year. That's a really crazy thing to say, but I promise you it is true and verifiable. At worst, you could say he's one of the top 200 players in the world, and he was earning a contract that was not among the top 500 contracts in basketball. So, was it worth it? Fuck no. But if he had a torn Achilles this offseason, maybe in his mind, he would be like, hey, like maybe it was worth it. Let me extract what I can from this moment. I don't know what he was thinking, but honestly, it's disappointing as hell. And I don't expect to see him playing basketball anytime soon. This is not going to be something that he's going to be allowed to play in the G League, or, you know, he's going to just go over to Europe and everyone's going to be like, oh, who are you? We've never heard of you. No, this is global. This is going to be one of the biggest, you know, it's just a stain. It's like a guy, you know, who cheats in the Olympics or something. You know, it's a big deal from the ethics point of view. So, and of course, legally, we don't know if he's going to be a free man. So, sucks. This is a punch to the gut if there ever was one. Okay, let's move on from the Jontay Porter stuff and let's talk about Masai Ujiri. You know, I got to tell you before this starts, number one, I was not able to download this video, which I found particularly aggravating, and I don't know why that is, but I just wasn't able to download it, and I don't understand why this particular video is different than any other video, because it just couldn't download it. However, I will play it off a browser tab. The only complication here is that it has to run off my speakers, so I just have to mute myself so that you're not double hearing it. There was a particularly annoying part of this where Michael Grange asked him about the pick that's going to be conveyed. It happens really early, and I want to stop the video just to break down what I think is kind of crazy, because people unintentionally give us information about what they do and don't know all the time. And I think this clued us into a very, very big problem for the Raptors. Okay, let me just pull this up here. Stop the screen share, start screen share. Okay, let me know in the comments if you have any issues with this. Okay, I'm gonna mute myself. I wish there was a
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
How's everybody doing? Steve, what's going on?
Man.
Wow, it's a big one, huh? Well, thanks for coming out. tough season for us, and very challenging year on and off the court. And but I think we learned a lot from this, and I think our team will grow from this, and we're going to take a lot of the positives that came out of this year, but definitely a very challenging year. I commend our coaching staff, players, I think the organization, our fans, for I think putting them through a year like this is it's not easy for all of us. I think over the last decade we've seen winning in this organization, and for us to go through a year like that, this was tough on everybody. But we really see the bright side. I think sports is a cycle, and our organization.
Okay, something worth stopping on. This is not Masai Ujiri. I don't know what cyborg has taken over this man's body, but this is the third straight press conference where we've heard from Masai Ujiri, in which I believe that we are just listening to someone who has lost touch with certain elements of who he was. I don't want to be overly critical of this guy because he is someone that I respect tremendously, but I want to be fair. Okay. When speaking in public, statements of the like of, I think, maybe, sorta, kinda, imply that the speaker himself is not sure about what he's talking about. This is going to come up a lot with Masai Ujiri. This entire year has been disastrous for him speaking to the media. I just want to be clear. He's spoken to the media 3 times. One was the Pascal Siakam trade. One was, of course, at the beginning of the season, and one is now. I have not watched all of this in full, but I just want to be clear. All 3 press conferences, and okay, those 2 press conferences and this one so far are really bad by Masai Ujiri's standards. I don't know why. I could infer some guesses as to why, but I have spent a great deal of my life trying to understand what people communicate without meaning to communicate what they don't want to communicate, if that makes sense. I mean, people lie all the time, so it helps to be able to spot the lie. There's a lot of unsureness here in terms of what he's saying. Okay. And of course, Masai Ujiri has often been accused of laying it on a little thick in the past, being a master salesman. But how does someone go from being a master salesman to this? I mean, imagine walking into a car dealership and, I don't know, you walk up to the guy and you say, "Oh, I need a car." And the guy's like, "Well, maybe, you kind of might like this one. Are you compelled? Are you buying the car?" I understand, that in a weird backwards way, I'm almost criticizing him for being too honest here. I don't think that's it. I wouldn't criticize somebody for coming out and saying I messed up. I wouldn't criticize someone for coming out and, saying I'm wrong. He did that a lot last year. In fact, if you want to be really honest with yourself, this trend of Masai Ujiri disaster conferences started last year. And these are not disasters in the context of, he's doing something bad or he's doing something wrong. They're disasters in the sense that the words, like, what is the point of this? Do you understand what I'm saying? What is the point of speaking to the media? It's so that they have a direction, they have some clarity on the like, try to understand this from the perspective of what is this that they do here, this horse and pony show. He comes up, they have questions, we all have questions, they ask questions, he answers questions. Based on the questions he answers, we either get information, we get narratives, we get talking points from which we build storylines, that's the whole point here. Okay, so naturally, from the perspective of the speaker, who is answering the questions. If your goal is positive coverage, then you come out the way he came out 4 or 5 years ago. We are going to win in Toronto. We are always about winning. What happened in even when we went to Tampa, we won. You know what we won? Scotty Barnes. He's a master at this. Like, he is truly somebody that if you are somebody who's looking to get into public speaking, Masai Ujiri is someone you should study. He is incredible. It is one of his deepest talents. Bobby Webster, not so much. Not so much, in fairness. But this Masai Ujiri, I'm going to take this back to last year. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe look at even the press conference about, Pascal Siakam getting traded. It's so tough, breaking down in tears. A lot of people ate that up. They ate that up because they themselves were in that emotional state of losing Pascal, losing the championship core, etc. But I got to be honest, that's not where I was. And to me, it felt weird. It felt weird, and it displayed why the Raptors got here. They got here because this man is not the same man who started this job. I'm not saying he needs to go. I'm not saying he's cooked. I'm not saying he's washed. What I am saying is that for anybody who is blindly saying that he knows exactly what he's doing all the time, chill on that. He does not know exactly what he's doing. And if he is ever, I don't know, he's not going to watch this. But Masai Ujiri, if you do watch this, perchance if someone just floats this your way, because I know that these videos criticizing the Raptors do have a way of somehow getting into the Raptors PR or whatever. I just want to speak directly from the heart. You're a good dude. You mean well, but you've lost your touch. You've lost your touch. You've lost a little bit of that vision, that attention to detail, that sharp intelligence, that foresight, insight, pre-sight, whatever you want to call it. And I do believe that it's time to find it again, because you could be on the precipice of a beautiful thing if you're planning on sticking around. Now, if you're not planning on sticking around, that's a separate conversation. But in sincerity, CEOs do hit past their prime. I had a video about this literally a year and a half ago in which I openly asked whether or not there's like a shelf life to intelligence and competence in front offices. I'm telling you, based on last year's pressers and every presser this year, is not the same guy. Is this a positive evolution? I've always talked about sometimes you have to go down to go up. Sometimes just because you were successful as one iteration of yourself does not mean that you can't be better as the next iteration of yourself. Case in point, Jerry West. So, is Masai Ujiri going through a bit of a metamorphosis here, a bit of an upheaval, a bit of a change, a bit of a shift? There's obviously a lot of stuff going on in his personal life that we don't need to talk about because it's nobody's fucking business. But in terms of as a basketball professional and as a leader and as a visionary, is he on the precipice of unlocking a new version of himself, which will always seem ugly? There's that old Batman saying, it's, that cliche of it's always darkest before the dawn. Sure. Progress is not linear, so they say. Sometimes in order to go from great to greater, you have to be bad for a little bit. Okay? Here, I'm going to sell you on what he didn't sell you on. It's the same thing with the Raptors. The Raptors hit what a lot of people consider rock bottom now. I think they hit rock bottom a few years ago, personally, but okay. And we can squibble over the details on when things hit the fan, or when the culture was lost, or when it was inevitable that change needed to happen, which turns this organization missed. But how did the team that was 5 years ahead of everybody fall 2 years behind everybody? That's a really good question to ask. And I think it starts with leadership. Always look at the top. I don't think Masai Ujiri has lost everything. Certainly he hasn't lost his way with people. He hasn't lost his sincerity. I don't think he's lost his understanding of basketball. But I do think he has lost maybe his passion, his conviction, and maybe his belief in what he's doing, because that seems to be shaken right now. It really does. It feels like this is a person who is second guessing himself. Now, you know what's kind of cool about this? This is a good thing. It's good to wonder, is it me? It's good to wonder whether your emotional attachment to your players has handicapped you. It is good to wonder whether or not the Biaka Pirtle thing was basically you living out some nostalgic fantasy of what could have been from 6 years ago. It's good. These things are good. If you grow from them and if you learn from them, it's good to unearth things. It's good to question. I love people who question why the fuck they're fucking up. This is good stuff. And it doesn't always look pretty in the moment, but it can be a good thing if you grow from it, if you stick around, if you learn from it. But there are certain segments of this press conference that gave me the impression that this is not a person who is actively trying. He goes into it more. Hang on.
Organization is going to go through different cycles, and this is our time. But we're going to take all the positives from this and build on as much as we can going forward. I think Darko and his staff did an excellent job with the situation.
Keep a tally at home how many times he says, I think. People who know don't need to think. Okay? Nobody walks around and says, I think I went to the mall today. You went to the mall or you didn't go to the mall. Do you know what I mean? And I did a lot of analysis on Fred VanVleet last year, and I'll say it again. The analysis is not reserved for just the people that I don't like. Did a lot of analysis on Scotty Barnes this year too, and I walked away very, very disturbed that he was always reluctant to accept the part where he says, like, why do you think, I mean, I was calling up Dennis Schroeder's bullshit literally in the off season? Because it's through the words, man. People communicate stuff all the time that they don't realize they're communicating, and consistently using the word I think, maybe implies that you don't know. And my question is, why do you not know that Darko Rajakovic has done a good job? Well, one of two possible conclusions. Number one, which would be the most devastating one, you genuinely watched and couldn't figure out whether what was happening was good or bad. That sucks for Darko. Potentially, number two, you don't know because you're not paying attention enough to know. By your standards. By your standards of involvement, you don't have enough of a pulse on what is happening with this team. And therefore, you are expressing doubt in your own thoughts. That you have basically come in after being a little disconnected from things as a figurehead who previously was very on top of things. And now you're being asked questions that you don't have firsthand answers to. Ever given a book report on a book you didn't read? This is a person who's giving a book report on a book he did not read.
If I think of positives, I think some of the talent, Scotty Barnes, his upside growth as a player, all-star. I think we are very excited about that with our ball club. So tough year overall, but we're looking to the future now, and this is the process that I think we have to go through in this organization, and we'll come out of it well.
I'm going to continue to point out things that I've observed. Notice the body language. Okay. If you want to go back and watch a Masai Ujiri presser from 2014 as a cost comparison, you can. People don't change that much in 10 years. Notice the constant soothing gestures. This comes from when we were children. When you are being questioned about something, and I can literally, like, I wish I could just pull my girlfriend on and just prove it. Accuse someone of something that they actually did and watch their entire body tense up. They start putting barriers between you. Now, press conferences are already kind of funky because there's already a barrier of safety between you and the people asking you questions. Number one, you are elevated. They are usually recessed. Number two, there's a table between you. So there's already enough of a barrier so that the people who want to go up and lie, which is what people usually do in press conferences, already have enough safety between themselves and the people who are asking questions. Do you understand what I'm saying? I hope someone out there just has a lot of insight into this. Look, if you really want honest questions, sit in a circle with someone, hand to hand, and look at them eye to eye. That's awkward and fucking weird, and no one's ever going to do that, but that's the best way to get these answers. However, when you create this type of barrier, especially if you create a barrier of a screen, a double barrier, right? That's a triple barrier. The more barriers you create, the more comfort there is for people who want to lie. So all I'm saying here is, with all these barriers in place, the elevation, the table, the status, all that stuff, he knows things they don't know. That's already another barrier. With all those barriers in place, the fact that there's still so much self-soothing gestures going on, so much cross-body language is very, very, very bad. Continuing on.
How committed are you guys to, a rebuild that could take time, and you could go into this draft lottery and, you finish 2-19 to finish the season, and you may not have a pick to show for it. Next year is supposed to be a very, very good draft. 26 sounds like it's got promise as well. So if you don't end up keeping your pick this year, what will you do in the years to coming without losing a first round pick?
If we don't keep our pick this year, I think we get our pick next year. Yeah, and I think
Still top six.
Yeah. If we get the pick,
I mean, if you don't have your pick this year, would you be committed to making sure you draft in the top six either the next 2 years?
I think for us, if we don't, if the pick conveys this year, then we have the pick next year. Correct?
Okay. Please go back and listen to that entire exchange 3 times. It is one of the most puzzling, craziest exchanges I've ever heard. Steele, I don't think you're getting it, bro. Listen to what was said. What the fuck? Bro, there's so much wrong with the question that was asked. Number one, the questioner does not understand the question. Number two, it's clear that Michael Grange does not understand this pick protection, which is fucking wild, given the fact that it happened almost a year. Wow. Number two. Number three, just to be clear, it is very strange that the questionee, or the person being asked this question, cannot automatically, definitively, and with confidence correct the questioner. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay. I'll give you an example. So I obviously know the cities of Serbia. Okay. So if someone said, is Lisbon the largest city in Serbia? I would definitively say Lisbon is in Portugal. Correct? Why wouldn't I? Number one, I've been to Serbia. Number two, I've been to Portugal. I know where Lisbon is. I know a city like a city called Lisbon does not exist in Serbia. So there's no, I think, maybe, right? There's none of that. There's none of that verbiage that's required here because I am confident in what I'm saying. Do you get what I'm saying? Now, obviously, if you ask me the same question about Qatar, I'll have to lean into the, I think, maybe, I don't know. I've never been to Qatar. Don't know very, very much about Qatar. You understand what I'm saying? So something as serious as one of the biggest talking points, a deal that you made, Masai Ujiri, you were there, you signed off on it, right? Now he's right. He's correct. I just want to be clear. He is correct. Masai Ujiri is correct here. He is correct. And just for anyone who doesn't understand how this pick thing works, the pick thing works as follows. Okay. Someone who covers this team, I think every one of us who covers this team should understand this. The Raptors traded a first round pick, 2024 first round pick, top 6 protected, to the San Antonio Spurs as part of a deal for Jakob Poeltl. The deal is as follows. If the Raptors end up with a pick from 1 to 6, they keep it. If it falls outside of that range, which means if it's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, all the way up to 30, then the Spurs get it. The same protection carries over next year, which means that if the Toronto Raptors finish with this, the bottom 6, it doesn't matter. The conveyance of the pick only happens after the lottery, which means the Raptors could move up to 1, 2, 3, 4. They have no chance of moving up to 5. They could stand pat at 6. History, however, says that the likely outcome, and the math says the Raptors will actually move down. So Masai Ujiri should know all of this. He should know that it is actually more likely that they will convey this pick to the Spurs as a 7th or 8th pick than keep it. Now, that all being said, there's something very peculiar about this exchange, which is so bizarre to me. He says right, which was weird. That's weird. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm mishearing this, if my weird brain is just not getting this, I apologize. But I've heard this 7 times and I just don't get it. And in fact, next year, there was a part of this. Hold on, let me just pull this up.
Phase this year, then we have the pick next year. Correct?
He says correct. Correct?
Sure, you draft in the top 6 each of the next 2 years.
I think for us, if we don't, if the pick conveys this year, then we have the pick next year. Correct?
I'm saying
Yeah.
if you don't keep it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Then you would still owe it to San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
It's
If you don't keep it, you would still owe it to San Antonio. And look at Masai. He's almost like checking in with Grange. Now, this can mean one of 2 things. Either Masai truly is super confused and does not know what, or 2, he's that confident in Michael Grange's ability that Michael Grange not knowing has confused him. Like maybe the deal got updated. Maybe Bobby, made a second deal when I was, on vacation or something. This is crazy. This is like dude, this is nuts.
so the potential is you're not going to have Antonio,
Mm-hmm.
and so the potential is
Us, if we don't, if the pick conveys this year, then we have the pick next year. Correct?
Now listen also to the indignation and the, I want to call it like almost like annoyance in Grange's voice when he answers this question.
I'm saying
Yeah.
if you don't keep it,
I'm saying if you don't keep it, there's a snippiness to it, which is almost like very strange because you're so clearly wrong.
right?
Yeah.
Then you would still owe it to San Antonio.
If you don't keep it, you would still owe it to San Antonio. Diagram that sentence for me. If you don't keep it, okay, am I stupid? Dude, this is making me this is the weirdest thing. It's making me second guess my sanity and my intelligence here. He is asking if we are tanking. You think yes, you would think he is, but listen to the follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
And so the potential is you're not going to have, you're here rebuilding, but you might not have a really good pick and a really good draft.
You're rebuilding, but you're not going to have a really good pick in a really good draft. What? Okay. But if you convey it, you will have the pick. But here's where he gets really confused.
In either the next 2 years.
I think we'll see how the year starts and plays out. I think we're going to give these players and this team the opportunity to play. We've not been able to, I think, bring these guys together to play, and that's the plan as we go into the off season, is to continue development, and these things take time. So I think either way it plays out well for us. We get a high pick this year, or next year we play ball and see where we stand. If you're not picking high next year, then your team is good or your team is progressing the right way. That's the way we've seen it. That's the way it's been also in the past.
Okay, just to be clear, just because you don't convey top six next, so if you convey the top six pick next year, that means you're good? No, this is also untrue, Masai Ujiri. No, not finishing in the basement does not mean your team is good. I don't know by whose standards you're calling good, but how far the standards have fallen. Hypothetically, if you keep your pick this year and you convey the 7th overall pick next year, 8th overall pick next year, that doesn't mean you're good. That just means you conveyed a very, very, very highly valuable pick. What are we talking about here? What? Okay, now to be clear, next year, if it doesn't convey, then it carries on for a third straight year, 2026. That point, if it doesn't convey, it turns into 2 second rounders. Just to be clear. Okay? So this cloud of Jakob Poeltl top 6 protected pick hangs over the Raptors' head for a full 3 years, just in case Michael Grange does not know that. Whew.
I think we've picked in the lottery. I think it's 3 times.
Shouldn't you know at this point?
With Jakob, Grady, and Scotty, and we attack the draft the same way. Anyway, we try to find talent, and sometimes you're going to have success at it, and sometimes you're not, especially when you pick late. But we understand what picking early is, and we're committed to it, and we're going to see where the growth of this team is, and we'll go from there.
To follow up on Graham's question, you've spoken a lot about the need for patience in this building process, and to your credit, you guys have been patient all the way through, but you've also valued winning. Do you think it's going to be tough as this process goes forward for you guys to remain patient and see this process through, and I guess avoid the temptation to potentially try to expedite the process before you're ready to do so?
We're going to do what's best for the team, to be honest, and we're going to try and grow this team the best possible way, use our instincts and experience to build this team the best way. Nothing is going to be, everything we do here is patience. You know that, that's kind of how we've been. We were patient this year. It takes a lot of patience to go through all of that. There are temptations here to try to make the team try to push and do deals that might not, help the team in future. But we have to look at the future of this team and be patient to see what the potential of this team. We have a young star in our mix with Scotty Barnes, young players, quickly, RJ Barrett, Grady. These guys we want to continue to grow. So I think we have to be patient with them and see where they eventually get to. So yeah, there's going to be no, I think, okay, if Ronaldo becomes available and we have to sign Ronaldo, or trade for Ronaldo, yes, but I don't know that, we're going to make crazy moves here, to try to speed in this thing up. That's not what it's about. But we will try to make our team better if an opportunity comes, and it's the right opportunity.
One of the misses this year was Jontay Porter. You miss your due diligence on that guy? And a good team.
We didn't. We did all due diligence, and I think from all the reports and everything we had, I think this was nothing we could know about. And I think all of that is under the NBA's investigation, so we go out there and try to do the best due diligence we can, with everybody individually. And we did that with Jontay too.
Where does that stand right now? Do you know?
Yes, I do know it's with the NBA, and it's still under investigation, and we wait for their guidance with that.
Has the NBA, have their investigators contacted you, or to the best of your knowledge, anyone else in the organization, just to ask questions or look into things further?
Oh yeah, the NBA is going to do their homework, and whoever is working for them is going to do their homework and their due diligence to ask all the questions, and our organization is going to comply, like with everything, and we have.
When did the situation first come to your attention, and what was your reaction when you first heard about, obviously, the very serious allegations?
First of all, you don't want this for the kid, you don't want this for our team, and we don't want this for our league. That's for sure. My first reaction is obviously surprise, because none of us, I don't think anybody saw anything like this coming. You prepare as much, for all kinds of situations in the NBA, but definitely didn't see this coming. But we act in accordance of what the NBA rules and regulations are of dealing with things like this, and we move forward with it.
Have you been in touch with Jontay since these allegations came forward?
I have, but I think we keep that, I think between ourselves and the team.
So what do you mean by patience in terms of looking into the future? Fans, I'm sure, are anxious to get back winning. What does patience look like to you?
I think we're in a very unique situation, because sometimes you start this rebuild with draft picks and space, and you try to have talent here and there. I think the most difficult thing to do when you do things like this, I think, is finding the Scotty Barnes of the world, and we're lucky to have a really good young player like this to build around, so I think it's going to be steady in his time, and we'll see, how we grow. So sometimes rebuilds can take 3 to 6 years. Sometimes, teams act before, but I think we're going to see how this process goes and use our instincts with it. But patience is going to be a big thing with this team.
Masai, you spoke in the offseason about changing the team's culture. Do you feel that the culture has changed? And if so, in what ways?
I maybe I was a little bit unfair, like with the other guys, but on trying to, keep a stance and try to get everybody back in the right direction. So maybe it came off wrong, how I used that, but I was trying to be very aggressive, with our team in trying to get us back, to who we are, playing the right way, playing for each other, and winning, back to winning, which I think we've proved that we can do in this organization. So I don't think as people, as persons, our culture, ever went anywhere, but I think we got away a little bit from maybe playing how, we would, all of us, would want to play or want to see the game. And I think now, I think Darko has instilled, a certain way, and we are going to move with that. But I think the culture is one of the things that has held us, from falling apart in, tough times like this. And I think I'm very proud of the organization, the team, ownership, everybody, staying with this and grinding it through, because it's not easy on anybody. It's just not. I'm sure it wasn't easy for you guys to watch. There sometimes it's unwatchable. Sometimes, you feel, but we have to grind through it. We've seen other organizations go through this, and we're going to. Yes, but if there's one thing I think, has never moved, I think our culture has really kept us through this, and I'm proud of all the workers, all the departments, everybody that has kind of contributed to this.
Is this at all similar to when you first came here, first started, and had to build from the beginning? Is there similarities to what you have to do now?
Yes, there's a lot of similarities, I think, to it. Yeah, I think with where I think when we first came here, Dwayne Casey, Kyle Lowry, and DeMar DeRozan set the tone for what our culture was. And this hard work, this incredible passion for the game, this winning. But those guys were experienced. Yeah, those guys were very experienced. I think the difference we have here is the player that we're building around is a young player. We're building around a first-time head coach in the NBA who's done a remarkable job. And it's all young players, like that, haven't really done it on that level. You can say Kyle, DeMar, and Coach Casey had been at a certain level and were at a certain age, like when we had that situation. So similar in some ways, Steve, but I think different with experience and age, maybe.
How can you augment that young group with as free agents or as after summer? What kind of guy do you want to get, and how can you entice them to come here?
Sometimes, Doug, I think we have to instinctively look at what the timing is going to be with that. I think throwing Grady into the fire, throwing Ochai into the fire, is going to help them grow at a certain stage. And then putting players like Olynyk, who plays the right way with them, is going to help them grow a little bit more. So I think instinctively we're going to look to see which kind of players are available that will help these young players continue to grow. So it's something that's on our mind, obviously, but but we're not just going to do it just to do it.
Going the other way with the younger guys, a lot of people aren't too excited about this draft. Are you? And whether that's if you keep this top 6 pick or if it's just the Pacers pick in the 31st pick?
It doesn't matter, I think players are found everywhere. I can guarantee you there are going to be 2-3 all-stars that will come out of this draft here. It happens every year, happens all the time, and it's on us. It's just with the responsibilities on us to find those players wherever we pick. So we can complain about the draft or a draft class as much as we want, I think maybe sometimes people say that a bad draft class was Giannis's class, but Giannis, Gobert, those guys got picked from that class. So we have to do our jobs, and it's on us.
So you mentioned the remarkable job Darko did. I was just wondering, from your vantage point, what about his performance in his first year on the job did you find remarkable, and maybe what kinds of things that we don't get to see or fans don't get to see or that don't translate into standings did you like about the job he did?
Extremely positive. I think one of the best at communicating, not only with players, but also with all departments at all levels. I think instilling how he wants to play offensively and defensively. For me, developing players has been and will be, and we know that was his strength, is in developing players. He knows the process. You see what he has done with some of the young players that we have had, including Scotty, jumping a level from maybe what some of us call, last year, a year that he kind of leveled out, a little bit, so making him jump. So I think on all fronts, we've dealt him a tough hand, and that's on us. But for what he was given, I think we went through 30 or 31 players this year, and for us, it's a difficult situation for a first-time head coach. But in terms of everything else
30
outside of results, I think Darko did an incredible job.
When you talk about culture, how would you describe it as it is right now? And can culture be created with this young core without necessarily vet presence?
Oh, yes, 100%. I think Darko sets a tone. I think the tone we've set with developing young players, I think Scotty Barnes sets a tone. I think you can tell from RJ Barrett, from Emmanuel quickly, these guys, the way they have come out here and taking this on the chin and really, really like taking responsibility to what they want the future of this ball club to be. I'll say that's the culture we want, like that's the passion we want and the thinking about winning, and we assure our fans that we think about them every day, and I know we're all aware. I know these guys are all aware that, we have to produce and we have to play but this is the process and this is the situation we're in. There's one thing I'm 100% sure, the culture of this team will always be at a high level. And yes, we're going to go through adversity just like every other place, human being, organization, or anything. Yeah, but the culture of this place is always going to be strong.
Come on now. Can we get real here? Was the culture strong last year? No. Was the culture strong the year before? No. Was the culture strong the year before that? No. So what are we talking about? The culture is always going to be strong, 100%. I guarantee it. This is an overstress. You know how I talked about earlier where kinda, maybe, shoulda, these things weaken what you're saying? Well, 100,000%, 100% sure these things also imply doubt on the other end of it. Basically, there are two ways to tell a lie. One is to be unsure of yourself. One is to be so unsure of yourself that you double down and maybe overcompensate for what you're saying. Now, he himself criticized the culture and called it potentially selfish. I'm just saying, logically, the two statements are incompatible. You cannot, on the one hand, say that maybe we were selfish in 3 different press conferences and then do things that imply that you definitely did believe that you were selfish. Now talk about how unselfish you are and then act like that selfish period never happened. Stop washing away what you did. Just be real about it. Yeah, players did play selfishly last year. We saw it. We witnessed it. We observed it. I'm happy you moved on from those players. Let's move on, Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to wash it back, personally.
Carter was elected to the Hall of Fame and obviously has a pretty big place in Raptors history. What can you tell us sort of about how the organization might plan to honor him next season? And is there anything you want to share about just his induction?
A secret. Love him. He's the best. I think, like everything else, just like we're going through here, had ups and downs, right? Maybe when he left, here, but I think what Vince has done, as a player, not not only the length of his career, but how he's carried himself, maturity, even from where we say, I didn't know too much of what went on here, but I know everybody is moving on, and I hope the fans can, and we can embrace, an unbelievable player that really set a tone, and set a pathway for all of us to be where we are today.
Looking back on the RJ and IQ trade now, are you happy with how that trade worked out, and what has impressed you about those two players in the time that they've been here?
That was a situation, we're putting, and I think we had to, at that point, we decided that we had to make a decision. And we're really happy with these 2 players. I think we have 2 young players with great upside. I think even RJ's game has started to change, his efficiency. We're going to work this summer on his defense getting better and 3-point shooting. And I think that's where Darko comes in. And I know RJ's bought in and quickly trying to figure out, where he should attack and be a point guard, shoot, all those things, I think will come with time. But in terms of those 2 players, we're extremely happy that hopefully we're able to get 2 young starters to come play for us.
You guys potentially have avenue some cap space this summer. You mentioned that a lot of the top free agents are former Raptors guys. What is the value of sort of augmenting a team through free agency, and how do you
Brack, this comment right here, Rob, I think he was trying to move on from what happened last year. We can really go back and fix it. I think what you mean is we can't really go back and fix it. Yeah, but those who do not, I mean, there's that old adage, those who don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. I would say those who whitewash the past or ignore the past or change the past are more likely to repeat it as well. So I do think that the suffering was real. I do think that it is important to maintain what happened. Just like today we talk about what happened at residential schools in Canada. That's a political, thing. That's a social thing. That's a cultural thing. We cannot lie about what happened. We cannot minimize it. I'm not comparing this to that. I'm just saying when it comes to the past, when it comes to mistakes made, it's good to just be 100% about them. And it's not correct, in my opinion. You cannot lose your culture, openly question your culture, change your culture, make an entire propaganda campaign about how we're going to have a new culture, and then make a statement like, we never lost our culture. It never really went anywhere. It's what sustained us. And, it's always going to be 100%. This is just, it's like having a car. I mean, I don't know why I keep using cars as examples. Maybe because we're thinking about getting a car. Look, it's like having a car, watching it break down, writing a terrible review, taking it in for repair, having it fixed, driving it, and then telling your friend, this is a car that'll never break down. Like, what are we talking about here? I'm just saying, like, just keep it real. Like, the truth is not so bad.
see the organization viewing free agency this summer?
You can view it in many ways. That's the beauty of having flexibility. So you could use it in players, you could use it to take in contracts and assets, you could use it in many ways. There is, and we wanted that flexibility for our ball club here. I think where we are as a team, we're going to see how we develop and how we grow. We're going to see how the summer starts off with our players, and we'll see how we'll use that cap space.
How much have you guys studied past rebuilds, or even present rebuilds, in terms of ones that have gone well, ones that haven't, and how much of it, I know you've talked a lot about instincts today, how much of it is just kind of just seeing where your own situation is and reading and react from there, as opposed to looking at other teams?
We've studied it from head to toe, everything that you can think of in all sports. Like every single way that you can look at it. So when I say instincts, I'm saying to you that I'm taking responsibility as a leader. It's not that we're not looking at other situations and what other people have done. But at the end of the day, our situation is our situation. Yeah. So yeah, like it goes different ways for different teams. I don't want to call out like names and individuals here because it's not fair to do that. Like some have been successful, some have not been successful.
The question itself was a very good question. The answer is unnecessarily defensive, and I don't understand it. Look, backtrack. The question is, have you paid attention to other rebuilds? How Masai Ujiri internalized that question or heard that question is possibly, hey, you're kind of losing pace with other teams. Other teams are doing things. Maybe you could learn from them. And then it's like this diatribe about how we've explored every single thing and our situation is our situation. First of all, saying the thing is a platitude. It says nothing. It's a tautology. Our situation is offering a meaningless statement that sometimes adds, it sounds like it means something and it sounds profound, but it's absolute nothings. So, this is a political speech. Just, I don't know. Not a fan of this answer.
Some have taken long. Some have not been taken. Some have not taken so long. Some have been very patient with what they do. Trust me, my somebody that worked with me, in Jeff Weltman has gone through this, so I talk to Jeff Weltman every other day, so these are things that we all study, with our front office, to the core of it, because I think it's our first time. It's my first time, going through something like this. So I have to respect it that way.
Kinda true, not completely. I do want to say the Jeff Weltman flex was kind of interesting. Yes, Jeff Weltman did come up underneath you. Yes, he has technically perfected a lot of what you're trying to implement here with Vision 6-9, with this with the Magic, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, right? Like Wendell Carter. You could argue that he's basically formed the dream team that Masai Ujiri saw the Raptors becoming when he initially saw Rudy Gay, right? I will say that Masai, one interesting factoid about all of this with Masai, is that I don't think people often credit how much fortune, good luck have had to do with Masai Ujiri's success in Toronto. But I also want to say that there's a chance that the version of the Raptors that won a championship was less successful than the version of the Raptors he might have built had he been able to do what he wanted to do initially, which was tank, tear it down, initially when he wanted to trade Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan. It's very difficult for Raptor fans to hear that. It's very difficult for Raptor fans to hear that sustaining 55, 57, 60 win type seasons, having the draft record success that they had, is not what was plan A, that there was a better vision out there for what Masai Ujiri could have done. And we'll never know that because that's not what happened. The Knicks rejected the Kyle Lowry deal. Rudy Gay got traded, DeMar DeRozan stayed, and the Raptors, and that move that was initially made to tank, which was Gravis Vasquez and Patrick Patterson, all that stuff, it didn't tank. It backfired. It went the opposite way, right? Nobody ever has come out and refuted the fact that they were trying to tank when they traded Rudy Gay, and they accidentally unlocked We the North. It is an accident. And then, the problem is when you're successful in a market like Toronto, which hadn't been successful in a while, if you remember the Bargnani years, there's so much pressure from ownership to continue building on it. And you start to buy your own shit. You almost forget, right? In a sense, you almost forget that the whole thing was an accident. I think it's good to realize when you're lucky. I think it's good to realize when you're good. Sometimes you're good and lucky. Sometimes you're good and unlucky. I'm just saying Masai Ujiri is good and lucky. But I wonder, had he been able to tear it down properly, would he have drafted Giannis? Now suddenly, where are we today? What would he have put around a young Giannis? Would he not have been better at assembling a core around the young Giannis? Naturally, the same person, the same talent that spotted Giannis, spotted Pascal, spotted OG. Imagine if Giannis was the guy around which OG, Pascal, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander came. Do you know what I mean? There's a version of reality which is perhaps very unlikely and very unrealistic for some people to even buy into, in which Masai Ujiri builds a dynasty in Toronto instead of what became a one-time champion. Is that a little crazy to say? Is it? I don't think so. So what's interesting now is if he's here for the long haul, which, I mean, he may not be, he may be. I have no idea. The Rogers board and new leadership and all that stuff puts a lot of his future in doubt in Toronto. But he might actually have a chance to do what he wanted to do initially the right way, which is really tear down. And potentially, if the Raptors do keep their pick, that's 3 young players who come in to join 4 young players who are already here, all of whom were handpicked by Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster. So, this is a chance to do something that he wanted to do 10 years ago, but didn't get a chance to do because there was so much pressure to win. So, I don't know. We'll see.
So, I think at the beginning of the season, in reference to Dennis Schroeder, speaking of free agents, you thought that might have been a way for the team to improve with Fred moving on. maybe your theory on why that didn't work out. And also, if you look at some of the free agent signings
Get me
that
popcorn.
have been made the last couple of years, there haven't been very many impactful ones. And, we're not talking big money free agents, but, the biannuals, the mid-levels, that kind of thing. And just, so maybe looking at Dennis and then maybe kind of have you assessed why the effort to add sort of peripheral talent hasn't really worked out very well.
Yeah, it's interesting, Grange, that we've studied all of this, and we just haven't done the last couple of years. We just haven't done very well, in assessing, what those fits could be, but when you have the staple pieces like we had, sometimes you think that with our jobs, you think bringing in, a certain piece is not going to affect as much, because you have staple pieces like a Scotty Barnes or like a Pascal Siakam or Giannonopi, those kind of players. But on the lower level, we 100% need to do like a better job of finding, some of those players. Sometimes Otto Porter didn't work out because he got injured, and those sometimes those things are hard. But yeah, we take responsibility. I don't. When I looked at Dennis Schroeder, and when we looked at Dennis Schroeder, we absolutely studied it. We saw a point guard that is going to be a tough defender, and come and play here for the team. And unfortunately, I don't know if we gave it enough time, but definitely the time that he was here, not his fault or anything, but I think more our fault. It didn't work out.
Whether it's through the draft or free agency, what's the type of player that you're looking to acquire?
Whoa. Didn't give it enough time, you wishy-washy. Are you kidding me? Of course you gave it enough time, and it's not your fault. And how did you watch Dennis Schroeder for the last 12 years? I've been watching the same player you've been watching. How did you come to the conclusion that he was going to be some team first, chemistry building, unselfish? No. This was an overpay on day one. The red flags were there on day one. Are we kidding here? No. Go back and watch the videos from the off seasons, literally dissecting all his words and being like, nope, this is not going to work. What are we talking about here? No, this is letting personal relationships blind your objective opinion of people. And that is a really bad idea. If you want to continue doing this, it doesn't matter if you like the guy. And I got to say, anchoring bias is so real with Masai Ujiri, right? It's so real with this guy. Like when he starts really hone in our prospect when he's 17, 18, that prospect, regardless of how much more information comes out about that prospect over the next 3-4 years, he will continue to nudge that, hey, no, that same thing that I saw in that guy, it's still there. And it's like, dude, no, it's not. Data set has changed. This is about being rational here. Masai Ujiri is very good at his job. He is above average. And who the hell am I to say, some guy on the fucking internet, that he's missing something? But I believe he's missing something here, which is it's a logical fallacy to assume what he's assuming here. You consider past relationships and how much they have dictated who has come to the Raptors. Now, he's been right and he's been wrong. Consider, for instance, Immanuel Quickley. Do you think that Immanuel Quickley was very, very high on the Raptors board when they selected Malachi Flynn? I don't know, a point guard? Yeah, probably. I'm assuming Immanuel Quickley was probably a top 20 player on their board. RJ Barrett. Masai Ujiri talks about meeting RJ Barrett when he was a kid and how he would come up to him and how Rowan Barrett introduced him. Jakob Poeltl, again, a player that you drafted in the lottery. That guy made his way back. Dennis Schroeder, a guy you've been chasing forever, apparently. Thaddeus Young, another guy you've been chasing forever, allegedly. 5 years we've been wanting Thaddeus Young. We've always wanted Thaddeus Young on this team. Okay, but you keep getting these guys at the wrong time, right? I wonder if there was a similar affiliation with Otto Porter. There definitely was a similar affection for Dennis Schroeder. And there definitely was a similar affection for Jordan Nwora and Ochai Agbaji. Both players who, by the way, Masai Ujiri knew when they were younger. So this is, in my opinion, not good. And in the case of, RJ Barrett, it works out. Congratulations. But in the case of Ochai and maybe Nwora, maybe it won't work out. And maybe there's a similar affiliation with Kelly Olynyk and some sort of connection to Team Canada. You can't just keep hiring your friends, is what I'm saying, right? Facts, Rob. I remember us being in Thad Young and Boris Diaw rumors for years. Right. What I'm saying is that it's like, let me put it this way. I have friends from when I was a kid, right? Now, those people are fundamentally different people. It would be very stupid for me to walk into a relationship with that person or to develop a new friendship with that person or reignite a friendship while ignoring the last 17 years of that person's life. People change all the time, right? Similarly, the same thing, you might not have liked a prospect, right? You might not have liked a prospect in the draft cycle, but maybe you see them in the NBA and they're a lot better than you think. Well, shouldn't you change your mind about that person? I just believe that a mind that is constantly changing is the best mind. Personally, that's just my opinion.
A little bit. I think a wing defender type player is something and unfortunately, I don't know if we gave it enough time, but definitely
Going to next season.
I think when you look at the draft, I think it's going to be best talent, and we always look at the talent. But that when we attack the draft, but honestly, like our team is not at a point where we can really pick and choose. I know backup point guard is something that we'll focus on a little bit. I think a wing defender type player is something we'll focus on. I think we've been unlucky in the last year or so with really maybe a backup big that is young and suits us in some kind of way. We had high hopes. We forget that one of the shockers this year for us was Christian Koloko, and we had high hopes for Christian Koloko on how he was going to play for us and a future center for this team, and that didn't work out for health reasons. And also Jontay Porter, like we don't know where that's going to go. So I think those were two good finds for us that fit our program, like that. Maybe we were unlucky in some kind of way.
I don't know if this is at your level or above you or how it works in the organization, but when you raise ticket prices, as you've done for next season, is that a decision that you make or is that a decision that's made above you? And why, considering the kind of year that you've had, would you go in that direction?
I won't say it's above me, but it's also concerning like my team. So yes, we have 100% input in this. I think we have to look at market prices everywhere. We have to look at the NBA. I think we have to consider our market, and we have to consider the fans too in every way. So it's been looked at in every possible way that it can be looked at and studied as much as we can and considered. A lot of consideration is made into this. So when these kind of moves are made, like we feel you feel for the fans sometimes, but this is how business works, and we have to keep plowing away.
What would you like to see from this summer from Scotty and kind of a step forward next year?
I think it's continuous growth. Like I just spent last couple hours with Scotty this morning, spending a lot of time with him, and he's very passionate. I think he's very anxious. I think not playing really got him in a different mindset. I can already tell the way he sees the game and the way he actually even talks. But he's focused on his shooting. He's focused on strength, leg strength. He's focused on shot blocking. He's focused on being a really good defensive player for this team and being a leader. And that's what we want to see, But guidance, you want to guide these players in the right way. Scotty is not somebody that you have to instill passion or work ethic, to be honest. I think some of the critics in the past were, does Scotty work, or is he... Scotty works, but sometimes he just doesn't want to do it here. And sometimes Scotty will be in Scotiabank working, but now Scotty has the maturity that he has to come and work with his teammates and work here, so it's never been a question his work ethic or how he is. For me, his passion is always there, and we just need to guide him. But that guy is full of passion and he wants to win,
Okay, so to finally close the Scotty Barnes doesn't work hard chapter, according to Masai Ujiri, the criticism last year was that Scotty Barnes potentially has work ethic issues, which was started, of course, by the Toronto media, the best media in the world, apparently. It really was started by David Thorpe making an openly questioning. Excuse me, 1 second. Okay. It's sorry, my dog is barking for some reason. It started with David Thorpe asking, the question or opining, potentially, I don't know, suggesting that Scotty Barnes, maybe he didn't work as hard as Pascal Siakam or something. And then the Toronto media, who already don't like Scotty Barnes, basically running away with it. Now, this is basically an admission that, hey, he did work hard. He just didn't work hard in front of the people who are covering him. And he did not work hard with his teammates. So the question then becomes, is that what happened last year? That he went to an independent gym or somewhere else to work with Brian, or at an off hour worked with Brian, which we all know based on Brian, and I talking, that was 100% true. They were working after games, etc. And then when it came time to being in the same gym as Fred VanVleet, etc., maybe he was not as present or not as early or not staying as late as maybe someone would expect him to. And maybe one of his teammates, who might have been the reason that he wasn't in those gyms to begin with, or very enthusiastic about being in those gyms to begin with, might have, I don't know, slipped it that, hey, this guy really doesn't work as hard as I did when I was coming up. Thus, the narrative starts, right? So this is interesting that he is saying that, hey, now he understands the meaning of this and why he needs to work hard. But this isn't only an evolution of Scotty thing. The situation has changed too. The people he's around have changed too. His coach has changed. The coaching staff has changed. Maybe it's a little bit easier to work out with Grady Dick and Garrett Temple and RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley and Kelly Olynyk and Jakob Poeltl than it was to work out with Fred, Pascal, and Nick Nurse. Is that possible? So it's not just as simple as saying, okay, well, he's matured. It's you've also created a completely different situation around him. I don't doubt that he is also matured, but I just think that this is such a big storyline last year, and it's nice to see him just come out and say, yeah, I know this stuff was there, but this is why it was there.
And I think he's really matured as a player. And this year, he's gone through a lot, and I think he'll.
Oh, I just want to be clear, Ram Rider, you got banned, didn't you? And you've made a new account with the same name. That's bold. Okay, banned twice. Peace.
We're going to come out of this well in terms of him.
You mentioned that a wing defender is something you would like to look for. this summer. You mentioned Scotty is really serious about improving his defense. When you look at the core pieces you have in place, do you see the potential for this team as is to get to a really high level defensively that you need to get to win?
Yes, because I think Scotty is going to continue to grow as a defensive player. I think quickly we'll learn our schemes more. I think RJ is going to take on the challenge, and I think Jakob is one of the high level defensive players. We're trying to groom Ochai already has the abilities to be a defender. They're just young, and I think it's going to come with time with these players, and we have to add more. And we'll see, how we can add more. Is where we saw Christian Koloko as a rim protector. We have to figure out how we find, some more of those players. But in terms of defense, I think we're going to continue to grow and get better and find the talent that fits.
Is the door closed on Koloko if he's cleared eventually to return here?
We're still checking on it, we're still keeping tabs on him, and we'll see how things go with his medical. I can't comment here on where his medical is, but we really wish him the best.
Do you think it's easier or harder to relate to young players, after the experience that you've had in the NBA than it was when you first entered the league?
That's a tricky question. Some of us as human beings, we just are going to have the opportunity to relate to this youth, or young players with our jobs all the time. And I think rather than complain about this generation, I think we have to figure out ways to be better at relating to them, and seeing maybe innovating and seeing where the world is going with social media, our phones, all the things that we feel affect this life now. So is it easier? I think there are challenges to it, but when I think of when I took the job in Denver and the kind of players we had, and really developing relationships with Carmelo, with Kenya Martin, with all the players that we had, I still have unbelievable relationships with them. For me, it's how you relate to them, and it's not all going to be the same. You have to figure out ways to get to people and relate to people, and we'll always try our best to relate the best possible way.
So you have two key free agents this summer with Gary and Bruce Brown potentially. Obviously, you guys have the team option. Do you see them as long-term fits with this organization, especially the way Darko wants to play?
I think we're going to continue to assess that as we go. We're going to go into a lot of our team meetings now and coaches meetings and try and figure that out. I think we had really good meetings with Bruce and Gary, exit meetings, and for me the most important thing is what do they bring to the table? What kind of talent do they have, their character, and I think they do have special talents that they bring, and we'll see how we continue with that and how the market assesses that.
Do you want to see Scotty on the U.S. Olympic team?
I do. I always do. I want to. I saw that roster, and when Kawhi is the last guy you add to the team, what can you say? That's all-star, loaded there, and really excited to watch that team. And I think we actually talked to Bobby and Scotty and I talked about this a few minutes ago, and he wants to play USA basketball. He has played USA basketball at all levels and wants to play at this level for sure at some point.
The players had the players had glowing reviews about Garrett Temple in their availabilities. What Why is it important to have someone like Garrett on the team, and what do you think his impact has been on the team as a whole?
As a leader, veteran player, positivity, ready to play, great voice, great demeanor. He checks it all. To be honest, he's tough. He was very positive for us. I think this year, and if you're asking for like a veteran, and veterans that really impact your team in some kind of way, even when they're not playing, I think for me, Garrett Temple and Thaddeus Young really like they are those guys. Like they fit that mold, and we're proud that we had those guys, and we have Garrett. He's a coach, like he's a player. He's an experienced player that really imposes his experience on young players and on a ball club.
So you've mentioned a couple times, and today as well, that for some teams, a normal rebuild can take as long as 5-6 years. Based on everything you've talked about today and the things you've seen this year, the young talent you mentioned in place, do you have confidence that this won't be one of those rebuilds, or is it just too early to even kind of think like that?
Yeah, I'm patient, but I'm not trying to wait like 6 years. To be honest, it's not we're hoping, like you hope with these things that you make the right decisions, you pick the right players, and for me, I think we're going to be patient, but I'm glad that we're starting off with, again, I say the most difficult one. I want our fans to know this, that the most difficult ones are the guys like Scotty to find, and hopefully one other person can emerge on our team, or you get another one, and you're on your way. So we're happy that we're starting off, like with this.
This is the first thing that he said where I am like 1000% in agreement, or 100% in agreement. Let me not over exaggerate that. It is a talking point that I've had pretty much the entire year now, where I've talked about the fact that the Raptors need something between Scotty and what currently exists. And they need Scotty to get better, of course, which is, what he's probably taking for granted at this point, that Scotty will get better. Scotty has gotten better. Scotty's already a better player than he was, 3-4 months ago, by virtue of everything that we've heard about his evolution as a person. But I will say this: Scotty Barnes, the better version of Scotty Barnes, that's a massive floor raiser. You're never going to be as bad as the Pistons or the Wizards with a player as good as Scotty Barnes. It just doesn't happen. The reason that the Pistons and Wizards are where they are in the standings, frankly, it's because they have Kyle Kuzma, Jordan Poole, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren. Those are not superstars. And when you have a superstar, there's a certain base level that you get to, and it's just how stars impact. So I completely agree that that player is the hardest to find. Now, who will be the second player? I'm very happy to hear that he did not say that that player definitively exists on this team. That shows me, at least, not that he needs to show me that he understands basketball. Obviously, he understands basketball, but it shows me that I hope that his emotional attachment to RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley is not clouding his judgment about who those players are, because right now they are still question marks. Be real with yourselves. Do not try to do the same thing where you try to jam a square peg into a round hole, i.e., Fred VanVleet is definitely going to become the next, Kyle Lowry, or Pascal Siakam is definitely going to be able to step in for Kawhi Leonard because we give him more shots. No, these were flawed propositions. This was wishful thinking. It did not work out. Fred VanVleet never touched the heights of Kyle Lowry. He was always a muted version of it on the court and a significantly worse version of it off the court. So, again, Jakob Poeltl, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, either he or Bobby Webster have proclaimed that Jakob Poeltl is a top 10 center in the NBA, or at least top 15. If I'm remembering that quote correctly, in my humble opinion, he is not. And if we're talking just as an asset, he's not even top 25. So this comes down to realistically seeing what you have. I'm happy that he sees that Scotty is a franchise player and someone worth building around. Is he the best franchise player right now? No, he's not. There's Luka Doncic. There's Victor Wembanyama. There are players that, frankly, most general managers would put above Scotty. But Scotty's not a finished product. We do not know who he'll be at 25. And if you're telling me that Scotty Barnes is going to be a better player than LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, Paolo Banchero, all these young guys, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at the age of 25 than those guys were at 25, I buy that. It's not definite that it's going to happen at all, but it is possible to happen. So there is extending within the limits of what is likely and what is possible. What he's talking about is possible. Now, the question then becomes, who's that second guy? As I said, you get it one of four ways. Okay, sign him, draft him, develop him, or trade for him. That's it. That's all it is. Development, Grady Dick, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley. Those are your three options. Any of those guys, could they become good enough to be as good as Jamal Murray? That's really it. Can you be as good as Jamal Murray or Kyrie Irving or one of those guys where you can take that next step? Could you be as good as a Kyle Lowry or DeMar DeRozan? Something like that. There's a big gap between where DeMar DeRozan was in 2015, 2016, 2017, and where RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley are right now. It is not, however, an insurmountable, crazy to close, impossible to close gap. There's a chance, a small chance, but a chance that Emmanuel Quickley or RJ Barrett exceed DeMar's peak. It's possible. It's not impossible. It's just possible. It's not likely, but it's possible. So I think that if I were to prioritize what are the odds of each, I think the fact that you would trade for that player probably is, in my opinion, the most likely outcome. The least likely outcome is that you're going to sign that player because most players who are in that realm of possibility are probably max players that are going to be able to pick their own spot. So trading is most likely. Signing is least likely. Drafting and developing are tied for equally likely / unlikely. So I don't know if those three guys, any of them, have what it takes to get to that level. But if I had to pick one, it would probably be Grady. If I had to pick my second choice, it would probably be Emmanuel Quickley. I think they're all equally, is weird to say, because Grady's 20. So he has theoretically a longer way to go. And Emmanuel Quickley's 24. So in theory, he has the least place to go. And Emmanuel Quickley is small. And, Grady's also the tallest of the bunch. I don't know. I think Grady probably has the strongest chance to become what he's talking about here, which is that second guy. I don't necessarily think I would put the odds of that happening at greater than 30%. So at best, your best case internal development prospect has a 30% chance of getting to the point where he's going to be on the level of a Jamal Murray or a Kyrie Irving or any one of those elite second options. Okay. Is there a possibility that you succeed despite not having that type of player on your team? Sure. There are teams like that, for sure. There are teams where there's a single star and then there is a second star by committee situation. Not usually very successful teams, but there are teams like that where the first guy doesn't have a second guy. Rather, he has a kind of one, I don't know, like there's no 1A, 1B situation. It's not like LeBron and D Wade, but it's not even a Scotty and Michael thing. It might be more of a, what's a good example of that? Kind of what Luka had with Jalen Brunson before Jalen Brunson became the Jalen Brunson we know, or kind of what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has right now. I mean, you could argue that Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams have a far, far, far greater chance. I mean, and this is where you start talking about comparables, right? Look at what the OKC Thunder have right now. They have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is probably ahead of what you can realistically expect Scotty to be. I think Scotty can clip him because of defensive potential and all that stuff. But let's just say those two are dead even. Look at the second guy up that the Thunder have. It's who is it? Is it Jalen Williams? Okay, then that means their third guy is Chet Holmgren. Chet Holmgren probably has more potential than any player on your team right now, other than Scotty Barnes. And some people would say he has more potential than Scotty Barnes. In fact, some people would say the Thunder have 3 young players that are better than your best young player. I don't agree with that, but I'm just saying some people might say that. And that's where I say there does need to be like a realization of where we are relative to where you got to be. You know? Trying to think of other teams that had kind of like that one star. Like, what's an example of a team that had like that one guy and then everything else was kind of like by committee? I don't want to point to the Detroit Pistons 2004 because I think they were more like 4 players by committee. Dirk and the Mavs. Yeah, Dirk and the Mavs is a good. That's a good thing. I'm sorry. Who said he was equal? No one said he was equal. Not today, at least. Dirk the Mavs. The 2019 Raptors. The 2019 Raptors is probably a good. It's a fair point because some people would put Kyle, Pascal, Marc Gasol kind of on that same level, and that's a good point because. But I just think that Kyle was just so good that it's hard for me. I mean, sustaining with less than that. Anyways, I'll think about it. Let's continue on.
With Scotty in our hands, but we're really excited about Grady and his development as a player, the kind of player he is quickly, his development, the kind of player that he can become. You can tell this is not where it's going to end, and RJ, like has just become a different kind of player here, and we want to increase that development and that and increase his talent level, like maximize it to as much as we can with all these guys. Even the Ochais of the world, Ochai has a potential to be one of the best defenders in the NBA. Yeah, we see that. Maybe you don't see it now, but that's why you do these things and you rebuild and you have a process and you're patient with all of this.
In that context, do you think it's, when you go to the draft lottery, or I don't know if it's going to be you, are you hopeful that you'll keep your pick and you'll be picking top 6 this year?
Anyway it goes, Grange will be grateful and we'll be happy if we're not in the top 6. Like we get our pick next year. And if we're in the top 6, then you know what, we go out and find the best guy or find whatever transaction that there is. Like to make the best use out of it, but. Honestly, like I don't go into any situation in the NBA draft, like thinking free agency, thinking, negative in any way. Like you go and try and be the best, try to win it, whether it's a pick, whether it's a negotiation, anything you are going to do, you're trying to like be the best. Yeah, and that's what we want to be here in Toronto and get back on track.
Based on what's reported out there, new MLC CEO, Keith, and how has that changed your workflow, and has that changed anything at all about your workflow with the Raptors and having to report to the new CEO now as well?
Yeah, I don't think, I don't think that changes in any way, like first of all, with Keith, we've got to know him, like a little bit. I think it's so much needed. Like with this organization, like that lift, that energy he brings, like what he brings to us, and honestly, even that, like balance with ownership, You just need that, and I think Cynthia did an incredible job. Michael Frisdale was good, I think we all know what Tim Lywick did, but we're super excited about Keith. That being said, it doesn't change how we work here, and that has been made clear, it doesn't change anything at all, on how decisions we make or how we go about making those decisions. We want to work together. Yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to build together, build a team here, and their contributions, ownership contributions, everything. To be honest, they've never they never meddle with anything that we do on the team side. And it's how we contribute on the business side and bring it together. Yeah, we're all up. For that, and thirdly, it's I think people see it as you said, reporting to somebody else. I report to 100 people. Yeah, I report to JQ. I report to my 10-year-old daughter. I report to Bobby. I report to Teresa. She doesn't even work here anymore. I report to Doug. But I'm still Masai. Nothing is going to fucking change that. I can guarantee you that. Yeah, guarantee. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
It's so hilarious how much he changed over the course of 42 minutes. Do you know what I mean? How much he builds confidence as he talks it's something for a periodical or a science article or something. You got to look at this guy's brain, because he walked into this very defensive, extremely insecure about what he was saying, and then walked at it. Just notion, for instance, how much he that same question by Grange about the draft pick. I mean, we started on a question about the draft pick, and look at the second time it came up and how confidently. Do you know what I mean? It is so interesting to me how he went from point A to point B in this conversation, where he just completely flipped the switch. It is kind of terrifying. It's weird, but it's interesting.
Sorry, I'm Adam. I have no money. Don't find me. Sorry. Yeah, but yeah, honestly, we focus on our job, and I'm not. Yeah, sometimes it's perceived outside, the whole politics of all of this, I'm not. Yeah, my focus, you guys all know it. I'm not trying to paint a different picture. You know who I am. I don't get involved in any of that stuff. It's to do our job and win. Yeah, I make my suggestions if I make my suggestions, and we go. And honestly, a lot of the times, ownership most of the times, ownership has been honestly unbelievable for us.
Go back and count how many times he used the word honestly in the last 2 minutes. It's a lot. Honesty is implied in every statement. Sometimes it just slips, but usually it means one of three things. Number one, you're lying. Number two, you're telling the truth about something that you assume people think you're going to lie about. Does that make sense? So, for instance, if someone asked you about your body count and your body count was way higher than someone who looks like you or is your age should have, you might say, honestly, it's 127, right? But looking at you, maybe you're almost defensively. Do you get what I'm saying? No one who looks at you is going to be yeah, that's a dude who has a 127 body count for whatever reason. I don't know why I'm talking about body count, but or even money wise, right? Someone asks you, how much do you make at this job? And maybe the job is not a very flashy job. And maybe you've been grandfathered into some very, very high salary for some reason. And you might say, honestly, I make about 200K a year, or I make 200K a year. And, maybe it looks like the job that you do nets you 70. I don't know. Or maybe you do a very cushy office job, which people assume is a very high paying job. You might say, honestly, only 45K. You're expressing that what you're saying is one of two things: either A, something you're not sure about, or B, something you believe that the person you're speaking to will not believe. That's the only reason that honestly comes up. It's not an automatic I'm lying, but it just means that he assumes that people who are hearing him speak about this subject will not believe what he's saying. And so he's doubling down by saying honestly. Make sense? Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I have zero complaints. I know people make out the whole sometimes contract stuff and what happened, but for me, there's no looming issues. I want to clear that up, there's none at all, and we move forward. And as long as I'm here, I'll work the best possible way I can work here to win, to build this team, to grow, because it's pride for me. I actually feel like something was taken away from me when we won the last championship, and my goal is to freaking win another one. So that's the focus. 100%. That's all I focus on. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so I unfortunately have to go, and this took way longer to break down than I thought it would, because I thought it was going to be in and out in an hour, and it has been an hour and 45. Do I walk away from this impressed, enlightened? What? I think I walk away from this with a great appreciation, if I didn't already walk into this with a great appreciation for the job at hand and how many decisions must be made and what the impact of those decisions might be. There are certain off seasons in which it's business as usual, right? There's just a re-sign your guys. There's sort of a sense of make minor decisions. Maybe there's a draft in which you only have one pick and it's in the second round. And you kind of get this feeling that things are basically going to remain as they are. The Raptors have been very busy throughout the year. Obviously, they did add 4 players at the very least who will be a part of their future next year throughout this year, which means that they did things that typically they would have maybe preferred to do in the off season during the regular season. Why don't teams like to make moves in the regular season? Usually it's because I think it's because it disrupts team chemistry to make moves in the regular season, because it usually can I don't want to say usually, but it can backfire very quickly, because a player like Bruce Brown probably needs a full training camp, or Nwara or RJ or Manuel Quickly probably need a full training camp to get completely comfortable with with everything you're doing. And so you could have a 2-month struggle for a team that you have a player that you've immediately acquired, and it could be a PR disaster, but really that player is struggling because they just haven't grasped the offensive and defensive and gotten comfortable with their team. So it's usually best to make these moves in the offseason. Now, just because the Raptors made a slew of moves in the regular season does not mean that they won't be active in the offseason. It just means that there are certain things that they needed to do that they got done, and now they can do the rest. What do they need? In my opinion, they need wing defense and interior defense in the worst way possible. If they can get it both from the same player, that would be incredible. Those players do not grow on trees, but if there is a player out there who guards rim and I want to show something because I think that it is important. Hold on one second. Masai Ujiri did have a little tidbit about Ochai Agbaji potentially becoming one of the best defenders in the league. He is a very good rim defender, which I thought was interesting. So while his crafted defensive plus minus is definitely in the 18th percentile, and that is not good per his position, I do want to say that his versatility, his block percentage, and his rim defense was very, very encouraging. Can he become a better defender? Yes, he can, because most of the players that he scores close to in terms of similarity defensively are average to above average defenders. And I think, let's see, like where Jalen Brown. Let's see, where's Jalen Brown? I mean, a lot of people consider Jalen Brown a pretty good defender, and therein lies the point, right? The strengths are defense, rim defense, and versatility. And so I think that there is some real upside on Ochai Abaji's defense that he's talking about. We haven't completely seen it, but I think when you put better defenders around Ochai, they have found a prospect who could blossom into a really good point of attack defender for 15 to 18 minutes. So I remain somewhat optimistic that Ochai Abaji will be better than the player who is picked by the OKC pick, if that makes sense, which means that you can rest easy and know that the Raptors traded what is effectively a now retired Otto Porter and what? A now retired Otto Porter and Kyra Lewis for Kelly Olynyk, which is a fair deal, which is a more than fair deal. And you could make an assumption that they traded what will inevitably be the 27th or 28th pick. I mean, where's OKC picking in this draft? Hold on, let me just pull this up here. Where is OKC picking? Let me just look at this here. They traded the 29th overall pick. So they traded the 29th pick for Ochai Abaji. I will be shocked out of my mind if the 29th pick turns into someone better than Ochai Abaji. And Ochai is not old. He's 23 years old. He's a former lottery pick. So, we'll have a video in which we go back and grade every single transaction that the Raptors made a year later or whatever. But I will say for now, that transaction should get a B. It shouldn't get an A+. It's not a home run steal. We'll see what Ochai becomes. We'll see what that pick becomes. But for now, I give it a B. The RJ IQ thing, I give a B+, maybe even an A-. I think I'll give it an A-. Actually, you know what? I'm talking myself into it. I think I give RJ Barrett plus Emmanuel Quickley plus the second round pick for OG Precious, given that OG and Precious are free agents who will need to be signed. I think I will give it a TBD based on what those deals are that they sign. But if they sign for a combined greater than $55 million, then I give that deal an A+. Country Kong saying, does the Pascal trade get an F+? No, but it is definitely the worst of the deals that they made. But Pascal is also, in my opinion, again, it's another TBD because, okay, fine. You can say, what if the Indiana Pacers really aren't very good in 2026? And 2026 is a great draft. What if you get like the 8th or 9th pick in the 2028 draft? 2026 draft. Wouldn't that be something, right? I think that was the key asset in that deal. And look, if the Pacers start to become bad during that time, that the value of that pick might be absurd because the 2026 draft, I can tell you, is loaded. So even if basically the only way that 2026 Pacers pick turns into anything negative for the Raptors is if the Pacers end up becoming like a top 5 team in the league. And then you end up, you end up getting like a 25th or 26th pick. But I have such incredibly high hopes for the 2026 draft. Like I'm looking at those players now, and I got to tell you, like when you look at this, that is setting up to be a draft that you want to be a part of. And the Raptors could be a part of it twice in the first round and twice in the second round, if I'm not mistaken. The Raptors have both their 2026 second round picks. So they could have 4 picks in that. No. They have 3 picks in that draft. Now I'm as confused as Michael Grange. Okay. Anyways, 66 saying, have a good night, chat. And Rob, thanks so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Always nice to see one of these come up. JLA Media, I changed mind. If Raptors get Sar, it's a wrap. That kid is 5. That kid is 5 for the new NBA. He's Pascal with hops at 71. I don't know. I'm not really a huge Alex Sarr fan, but maybe I'll come around on him. All right. Talk to y'all later. And I am off 9:30 p.m. If you just happen to be around Scotiabank Theater tonight, 9:30. Go check us out. We are screening 2 films for Canada Film Day. Happy Canada Film Day. And yeah, definitely come out. There are very few tickets remaining. Tickets are available on filmfreeway.com/pendants right now. I think there's like 6 tickets remaining. It's going to be a full house. I'm excited. All right. Take care, guys.